Given that you clicked on this video, you probably know what I'm about to say. After 5 years in charge, Gareth Taylor has been sacked by Manchester City women. Mind you, this is right before City played Chelsea 4 times in a row in a 2-week period. While there are fans who may have been expecting his firing eventually, the timing is absolutely shocking. So, how did we get here? Why was Taylor sacked? And what's in the future for Manchester City? How did Taylor and City go from seemingly having the season in hand last year to getting sacked less than a year later? This isn't just a story about a manager, but a club in a system where loyalty, above all else, is rewarded. To understand this, we have to go almost a decade back. In 2016, Manchester City women won their first Women's Super League title. This was under coach Nick Cushing, and led many to believe that Manchester City could rival Arsenal's dominance. For the next 4 years, though, that didn't really come into fruition. They did win the FA Cup 3 times, solidifying themselves as a superpower in England, but never won the league again. They had some of England's most iconic players like Steph Houghton, Jill Scott, Nikita Paris, Georgia Stanway, Ellen White, and Keira Walsh. They also had Scottish superstar Caroline Weir. During the 2019 to 2020 season, though, the season that was cut short by COVID, it was announced that Cushing would be leaving for New York City FC to be assistant coach to City Football Group's men's MLS side. For his replacement, City did what they always do: look inward, promoting the former City player Gareth Taylor. The Welsh international had been working within City's academy system since 2012. His hiring came at an interesting time, though, and kind of set the tone for the rest of his City women career. Because COVID cut the season short, not all the games were played. City actually finished 1 point ahead of Chelsea, but Chelsea had a game in hand. After days of deliberation, the league announced Chelsea victorious over City based on points per game. First season, second place. Since that disappointing end, City have only managed to win 1 trophy, the 2021-22 League Cup, and have finished second in the WSL twice, while Chelsea have won the league 5 times in a row. Taylor leaves City currently sitting 4th in the league table, behind Arsenal and rivals Manchester United, who only formed a women's team in 2018. City won a league title before United was even formed and are now losing to them. Charlotte O'Neill, City's managing director, said regarding the sacking, Manchester City prides itself on competing at the top of the WSL and on its outstanding record of qualifying for European competition. Unfortunately, results this season have not so far reached this high standard. With 6 games of the WSL campaign remaining, we believe that change in management will breathe fresh life into our bid to ensure qualification for the 2025-26 UEFA Women's Champions League. Essentially, despite all the talent that has been through City's doors the past few years, Taylor has not been able to grasp the Women's Super League trophy from Chelsea's cold, dead hands. The dip in form City has been facing this year from last is very noticeable. They almost won the league last year. In fact, it was practically given to them when Chelsea women had a shocking 4-3 loss to Liverpool on matchday 20. City had already done the hard part, drawing and beating Chelsea earlier in the season. Now, all they had to do was get at least a draw over Arsenal. Yeah, they had conceded an equalizer to Sina Blackstenius in the 89th minute, but no way that happens again.
5 minutes for someone to win it. As Kim Little takes it, Blackstenius, you are kidding me! 2-1 Arsenal in stoppage time. City's title party on pause. This is incredible. Over to you, Chelsea.
So close. They were a stoppage minute goal away from finally winning the league from Chelsea. You know what comes next. Chelsea dominate on goal difference and claim the league title while tied on points with City. The cracks in the ground were way before this, though. For years, rumors of player disgruntlement with Taylor had been circulating. Taylor's first season seemed really promising. He brought in Chloe Kelly from Everton, we'll circle back to her later, the American trio of Rose Lavelle, Sam Ewis, and Abby Dalkemper, along with bringing England stars Lucy Bronze and Alex Greenwood back home from Lyon. Unfortunately for City, they finished just 2 points short of Chelsea for the WSL title, with their one loss this season being against Emma Hayes' Blues. After finishing second in Taylor's first season, City allowed him some spending money, though he did not use any of his money to try to get Rose Lavelle to stay for some reason. In the 2021 transfer window, though, he bought in 6 players: Jamaican international Khadisha Shaw from Bordeaux, wonder if she'll be good, Australia's Hayley Raso and Alana Kennedy, Barcelona's Vicky Losada, the Swedish Felipe Angadal, and English youngster Ruby Mace. Then, in the January transfer window, he broke transfer fee records for Norwegian wonderkid Uli Blokstad. Out of the 7 players I just listed, only Shaw is still on the team. 1 out of 7, 4 years later. This man spent God knows how much money for Blokstad and just didn't play her? And then when he did, he played her at fullback instead of her natural position on the wing. So yeah, let's just buy a young talent and not play her. That'll really develop her. Great thinking. That definitely won't lead to her leaving. Which, again, is just one of many examples of how bad his player management has been. His retention rate is horrible. Before this all fell apart, though, City continued to bring in top talent coming off their League Cup win that season. Kirsten Kasparagi, Yui Hasegawa, Mary Fowler, Leila Alexandri, and Leila Ohabi all transferred to City in the summer of 2022, and are still with the team. But City lost a lot that year. Lucy Bronze went to Barcelona, Ellen White and Jill Scott retired, Georgia Stanway went to Bayern, Caroline Weir went to Real Madrid, Vicky Losada also left for Roma in January, only a year and a half removed from joining City. Heading into the 2023-24 season, the transfer window was a lot less interesting. They essentially just swapped Haley Rasso, who transferred to Real Madrid, for a disgruntled Jill Roord from Wolfsburg. And yeah, we know how this season ended. As noted earlier, City cares about qualifying for the Champions League. So what's Taylor's history there if he's not winning the Women's Super League? Oh boy. Like the Super League, Taylor's first 2020-21 campaign was probably his best. City easily dispatched Swedish giants Koparsberg Skotteborg in the round of 32, dominated Fiorentina in the round of 16, but then fell to a Barcelona side entering their prime in the quarterfinals. They didn't even qualify for the Champions League next year. They faced Real Madrid in the second qualifying round, and after a 1-1 draw in Spain, City fell 1-0 to Madrid at home. Embarrassing, considering Real Madrid, the club, only existed for less than 2 years before this. Well, you know what? There's always next year, and oh my god, they did it again, and Weir scored? They didn't even qualify for the 2023-24 Champions League qualifiers after finishing their Super League campaign 4th in 22-23 season. It is this season, though, when things really got interesting. City seemed to be firing on all cylinders from September through October. I mean, they opened the Champions League group stage by defeating Barcelona 2-0 in Manchester. Then the wheels started to fall off by November. They lost 2-0 to Chelsea, suffered a 2-1 loss to Everton somehow, and then got smacked 3-0 by Barcelona in the last Champions League group stage game. Aside from this, one player's discontent was making headlines: Chloe Kelly. The 2022 Euros hero was not being played at all. Instead, Taylor opted for Japanese youngster Alba Fujino and 19-year-old Lily Murphy. Make no mistake though, Kelly was definitely being left out in the cold. News outlets had no idea what was going on. I covered the transfer saga in a video last month, but essentially leading up to the January transfer deadline, Kelly came out with a statement formally asking to be loaned or transferred out. Despite all of this, Taylor was still in the media claiming that she was still their player. In the last hour though, a deal was struck, sending the Lioness to Arsenal on a loan. So yeah, so far this season has been bad results mixed with bad player management and just bad vibes all around. City had opened up the January restart in the Women's Super League with a 4-2 loss to rivals Manchester United and a February league loss to Arsenal. On March 15th, City drew to West Ham, a team fighting relegation, and while that was followed up with a 2-0 win over Aston Villa in the FA Cup, Taylor was sacked a day later, leaving the team in 4th place, but still in all cup competitions. The saga of Taylor's tenure will forever be defined as underperformance and a high player turnover. So, who is taking over as interim for this talented squad, you may ask? Oh, you know, Nick Cushing. Remember him? Yeah, New York City FC didn't quite work out so hot once he got promoted to be head manager. He was just sacked in November. And the best part about this, do you want to know the biggest complaints against him aside from his inability to adjust tactics? Player development and questionable substitutions. Cushing's award for this job: 4 straight games against Sonia Bonpastor's Chelsea. I mean, to be fair, the odds are kind of in his favor to at least get one result. You know how hard it is to beat a team 4 times in a row? Someone on Twitter pulled up the last time Nick Cushing City faced Chelsea, and it's crazy seeing the retention rates between the two teams. Like 4 of Chelsea's starters are still in the squad, and none of the players City started are even at the club. In fact, Chelsea snatched one of their players. Results are not impossible though. Chelsea have been struggling recently, even if the results don't actually show that. The problem is that City is vulnerable also. Even if Cushing turns City's season around, don't expect him to be their long-term solution. Reports are that he's aiming to get back into top-flight men's football, so, great locker room presence. I'm sure the players will completely trust him. So, finally, what is City's current outlook? Their first game without Taylor will, of course, be the League Cup final against Chelsea on March 15th. They then have 2 legs of the Champions League quarterfinal against Chelsea, accompanied by a league game against Chelsea. The team is currently 4th in that WSL, 1 point behind Arsenal and 4 behind United, but those clubs do have a game in hand over City. So, finishing higher than 4th will most likely require City to beat United in May. And for City, it's crucial to get that 3rd spot, as that's a last spot allocated for Champions League qualification. For context, winning the league is automatic qualification for the Champions League group stage, 2nd places you in the 2nd round of qualification, and 3rd is qualification for the 1st qualifying round. While I did think they'd actually wait until the end of the season to sack Taylor, sacking him right now does make sense. If they did end up turning the season around with him and end up in a Champions League spot, they might rethink about sacking him. However, that could just guarantee another year of underperformance after. Meanwhile, whether or not they could turn it around with Cushing, they could still look for someone new. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on City's sacking of Taylor. Do you think Nick Cushing can get City back on track and qualify for the Champions League? Or should they have sacked Taylor earlier? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll probably be talking at you again next week.